Good morning, my friends. Welcome to my channel this morning. I am so grateful that you're here. Gratitude is the number one thing I think about in the morning when I get up to have my coffee. Seriously, it is. Sorry? No, I'm at the moment I just want to do my talk with my... No, I can do that. I'm sorry? No, it's okay. No, I just want to share with these people. That's all I want to do. Yeah, can you give me like, I don't know, 15-20 minutes? Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you. I bet you thought for 1 second that there was someone talking to me, or that there was someone standing next to me or wanting my attention. I am going to talk to you about assumptions this morning. Assuming that there was someone there just now talking to me. That's what we do often. And we assume certain things because something looks like that, maybe perhaps, and it's misinterpreted, and so therefore it becomes a truth for somebody, and somebody will take that and make it their truth, and they don't even investigate it. Or even if you've turned off this talk this morning, you assumed that someone was talking to me, and it becomes your apparent reality, which again points to me that there's no such thing as reality for me, as I realize, because we are all very guilty, and to this day, even with a spiritual search that we go on, we can assume so many things that are not at all true, and assuming can get you into so much trouble, and it can be really devastating and painful, and most often than not, we assume the negative, I think, because that's what the brain does. It creates. I like to say that for me, that the mind is the consciousness that we share, and that the brain is the the brain is what makes us move. And it is an incredible instrument that we use to think. But what are thoughts? We assume that our thoughts are true, and we assume that they are true, and that it becomes final and becomes our truth, and we don't even perhaps even investigate the more information about whatever we're assuming. Assumptions, like, let me begin. This is going to be a topic this morning. It's going to take me a little bit of time. I think I have a little time because I'm working this afternoon. So the morning off, before I go out, I can take my time this morning with you, so I'm really grateful for that. Assumptions, like, the first thing that I can think about, maybe perhaps, is Santa Claus. When we were little, the most exciting thing every year came around was Santa Claus, because it was a time of getting, and it was a time of getting. I assume that someone's here, or I hear a buzzer. I assume something. Anyhow, I was talking about Santa Claus, and I assumed that Santa Claus was real because Santa Claus, because I was told that Santa Claus was real, so I assumed that, and that was until, I don't know, the age of like maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. I assumed that he was real, and I started to believe that assumption, and it was quite maybe painful or something to realize that he wasn't real. And so right now I have to tell you that there are people, I don't know, I'm in an Airbnb, and so outside my closed door there are people coming in, and I'm assuming that they're hearing me and that, yeah, that I will be disturbing them. It's so funny. It's so funny. And I don't want to talk out loud because, yeah, but I'm going to talk out loud. Anyway, sorry about that. So assuming. What do we assume about each other? We assume so many things, and we never even give it a thought that maybe perhaps it's not what you assume. And most likely, I think it's all negative, or it's all not the truth at all. Back in history, you know, there was a time when when people believed that the earth was flat, and they assumed that, and that was final and the truth. And we all know how that ended, and it's not. I mean, they would kill you for assuming, for having another idea, or that people were proving the fact, you know, scientists were proving the fact that it was not flat. So that was an assumption that everyone believed. So in our daily activity, we assume so many different things, and we assume that people who have these very big egos and they walk around, that we assume that they are confident. And I can tell you right now that what I think about that is that I think that they are afraid, and people who have these big egos and they walk around like their shit doesn't stink and they are so together, that in fact they're not really. They're trying to hold it together, and they're trying to project that they are all together. And anyhow, that is something that we assume. We assume that they are strong and independent and confident, and well, that's not really true. So, you know, I think we would perhaps assume that all religions have the right idea, and that we follow those practices, especially early in our life. We assume that what people are telling us, that is the truth, without finding it out for ourselves. And that is not what life is about. Life is about figuring out things for yourself and trying to find out your own truth by not assuming certain things, and assuming that, you know, if I'm a good boy, I will go to heaven. That's something, you know, if I'm good, everyone will like me. If I'm good, I will, you know, be liked by everybody, and then I'll feel most comfortable, which is extremely contradictory, because that is definitely not the truth at all. I can tell you, like, when I'm a teacher and a choreographer, and in my instances of assumption, like I can be teaching and I can look across the room and I can see a dancer having a reaction to something, and a kind of a sour face, maybe perhaps. And immediately my mind can assume that this person doesn't like what I'm doing, or this person is annoyed with what I'm doing. I can assume that, and that has happened to me on many occasions. And, you know, the person who wants to be liked, or, you know, or the old person in me that wants to be liked by everybody, or you know, like what you're doing, or agree with what you're doing, I can assume that person hates what I'm doing in a flash. And that is automatic. That can be automatic, because my mind is domesticated and conditioned to think the worst about these things. When in fact, you know, I've had this situation before, and the following day I have met the person in the hallway before the class, or, you know, before the class, and that person has come up to me and thanked me so much for my classes and my work and all of those things, you know. And I immediately realize that my assuming is not the truth of that. And so when I assume, it becomes a truth, and therefore all of the feelings of perhaps suffering arises in me, and I can feel like extremely I don't know, overwhelmed by these negative feelings, and that they are the truth. You see what I mean? So those things are really important to pay attention to. Assumptions. Never ever assume anything, because most likely they are not true. Well, I would probably think that you would want to look further. Maybe perhaps, you know, people can assume that, you know, like my mind says, and it is assuming that when I do these talks, or when I'm doing my channel, my vlogs, that people, my mind can say that people think that I'm a Mr. Know-It-All, and that I'm just telling people how to be, and that's not true at all. I'm extremely vulnerable doing this. I'm getting better at it, and that's my relationship to myself. And so if you look a little bit deeper, if you at all care at looking at or trying to just investigate your assumption or your opinion about something, it is very interesting. You know, you can think, we have the free will to think what we want, and in this fast-paced world we can assume so many things that are true about what we're told in the media. I mean, what we all know that, you know, the news is a lot of it is fabricated, because there's no evidence with some things, and it just flashes across the screen on the internet or on the newspaper, and you assume so many things when that's just one point of view. And where did they get all this information from? I'm just saying that assumptions is one of the worst things that you could do, and I stop assuming, and I stop listening to my mind and assuming that anything is the truth, because it's just simply not the truth at all. Maybe, perhaps. So yeah, at the moment I'm sitting here and I'm just having a moment, and my mind says, they are going to think that you don't know what else to say. And my mind is just thinking. You know, when you're sitting at a table and you're sitting at a table, say with your family or your friends, and you ever notice that there are times when people are, when no one says something at the table, and that your mind starts assuming that it is boring, or that you're boring, or I need to say something, or because maybe they think that I'm stupid, or these kind of things, when in fact it's just what is happening. But we don't need to label anything, we don't need to assume anything about that situation. And I am getting good at that. I'm getting good at just allowing myself, for my mind to catch up to my thoughts, or vice versa. And that's really cool. It's very, very cool. So, you know, I don't know. Let's go back to the silly little thing about Santa Claus. It all started there. It all started there. It all started when I was little. You know, it's really interesting to look at the conditioning and the domestication about this, and how we assume so many things can be thought of as final and all that. So assuming is just not a good thing. and assuming that people don't like you, assuming that, you know, there are people for sure not going to agree with you, and we can learn to disagree. We're going to learn to agree to disagree about things, and that's really good, because then we can learn about others, and we can, I don't know, perhaps we learn, and we stop assuming, and we investigate. We have conversations. We grow from those conversations, instead of assuming that what you see is the reality of the situation, because it's most likely not that way. So every day that I live, I really try to incorporate that into my thinking, and to evolve with that in mind, and to stop assuming, because it can be death to us, I think. I mean, that's dramatic, but I guess it's death to opening up, death to knowing, death to, yeah, to everything being final, and then you run by that, and you're assuming that people are, you know, I'm assuming people right now think that my mind says that I'm just really that I shouldn't do this and all this. I'm still like, my mind can do that because it's conditioned and it arises, but in fact I know that I'm connecting with a lot of people, and I want to do that, and that's really a very cool thing here. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee. Maybe, do you know what I'm drinking here? What do you assume that I'm drinking? You're probably assuming that I'm drinking coffee, or maybe I'm drinking tea because it's in the morning talk, but I'm drinking coffee. There you go. Because I told you that I was, but maybe I am lying about that, but it's really coffee. So, you know, you can't assume by what people are telling you that it is also the truth, because we tell people what we want them to know, and what we think that the other person will think more highly of us, and so we assume that what they're telling us is the truth, and in fact we're all guilty of that, and we can all be guilty of that. So that's what this morning talk was about this morning, and I just want to invite you to think about not assuming anything at all during the day, and just stepping back and looking at the situation. Don't assume that people are completely 100% confident or happy all the time. I don't want you to assume that I'm happy all the time, because obviously I'm showing you these feelings of mine, and I'm showing you that I am vulnerable, because I believe that we are all vulnerable, and that we all can learn from each other. And I'm opening up like this because it's just so important for me to do that, and it's a calling that I have, and that's what it is, and that's a beautiful thing to do for me. And so I start my day today in Rome, and I'm here. I had an incredible day. I made a vlog. I danced in the streets of Rome. I danced in front of the Colosseum, and I danced on the Spanish Steps, and a little bit by the fountain in the Vatican. And it was amazing to dance in front of those big historic landmarks in Rome. Never assume anything, because if you assume that my lifestyle is just rich and rich and full of just the best things in the world, it is not true, because there are pros and cons with my lifestyle, for sure, and they bring me a lot of experience, and those experiences are sometimes challenging and difficult, and don't assume that I have it all together. I'm getting there, but for me, and I want to share it with you. So I like to assume that love is the only truth. I don't know, I feel that in my heart, so maybe I'm assuming that, but that's my truth and no one else's truth. Anyway, so have a beautiful day and thank you so much for watching. I'm going to enjoy my coffee or my tea. Ciao.